Your brain doesn't distinguish between talking about doing something and actually doing it. This single fact, backed by decades of neuroscience research, explains why 92% of people fail to achieve their New Year's resolutions, why most business ventures never get off the ground, and why the gap between intention and action continues to widen in our hyper-connected world. What I'm about to share with you isn't just another productivity hack or motivational platitude. This is a fundamental understanding of how your nervous system processes goals, how dopamine circuits respond to social validation, and why the very act of sharing your aspirations might be sabotaging your success at the neurological level. Today, we're diving deep into the neurobiology of achievement, the psychology of implementation, and the counterintuitive truth that silence might be your most powerful tool for transformation. By the end of this presentation, you'll understand exactly why keeping your goals to yourself isn't antisocial, it's neurologically strategic. PART1THENCEOFPREMATIOUREAD. Let's begin with what happens in your brain the moment you announce a goal. Picture this scenario. You decide you're going to run a marathon. You tell your friends, post it on social media, maybe even buy the running gear. Within seconds of that announcement, a cascade of neurochemical events begins that fundamentally alters your relationship with that goal. First, there's the immediate dopamine release. Dopamine, often mischaracterized as the pleasure chemical, is actually the molecule of motivation, of wanting, of drive. It's released not when you achieve something, but when you anticipate achievement. The moment you verbalize your marathon goal, your dopamine circuits fire as if you've already taken a significant step toward completion. But here's where it gets problematic. Your brain, which evolved to conserve energy and seek efficiency, begins to process this social acknowledgement as partial goal fulfillment. The ventral striatum, a key component of your brain's reward system, shows activation patterns similar to those seen during actual accomplishment. You're literally getting rewarded for talking about doing something rather than doing it. This phenomenon extends beyond simple reward chemistry. The anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for monitoring conflicts between intentions and actions, begins to reduce its vigilance. Why? Because your brain has received social validation for your intention, reducing the perceived urgency to convert that intention into action. Research from YU's psychology department demonstrates this clearly. Participants who announced their goals to others showed significantly less follow-through compared to those who kept their goals private. The announced group reported feeling satisfied with their goal progress despite taking fewer concrete actions. Their brains had essentially been tricked into believing that declaration equals progress. Now, let's examine the dopamine system more closely. Dopamine operates on what neuroscientists call prediction error, the difference between what you expect and what actually happens. When you announce your goal and receive positive feedback, you're creating a prediction error signal that suggests progress has been made. Your brain thinks, "Good, we're on track," and the drive to continue diminishes. This isn't just theory. Functional MRI studies show that when people discuss their goals with others, there's increased activity in the brain's social cognition networks areas like the temporoparietal junction and medial prefrontal cortex. Meanwhile, activity decreases in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for executive control and sustained attention. Your brain is literally shifting resources away from execution towards social processing. The implications are profound. Every time you share a goal, you're not just getting social support, you're rewiring your brain to associate the goal with social interaction rather than personal achievement. You're strengthening neural pathways that prioritize communication about intentions over the implementation of those intentions. PART2THEPS, YCHOLOGYYOFIMPLEMENTIEN. Let's move from the neurological to the psychological. There's a critical distinction that most people miss: the difference between implementation intentions and social intentions. When you announce your goal, you're creating a social intention, a commitment to maintain consistency between your public image and your private actions. This sounds good in theory, but it creates unexpected psychological pressure that often backfires. Social psychology research reveals that when we make public commitments, we begin to derive satisfaction from the planning phase rather than the execution phase. This phenomenon, known as goal gradient effect, shows that people feel progress toward their goals simply by engaging in goal-related activities, including talking about them. Consider what happens when you tell someone you're going to write a book. Immediately, you begin to identify as someone who's writing a book. This identity shift provides psychological comfort and social recognition. Your brain starts processing this new identity as evidence of progress. The conversations about your book, the research you do, the notes you take, all of these peripheral activities begin to feel like writing, even though you haven't written a single page. This is compounded by what psychologists call the substitution effect. When we engage in activities that are symbolically related to our goals, but don't directly advance them, our brain treats these activities as progress markers. Talking about your goal becomes a substitute for working toward your goal. The prefrontal cortex, your brain's CEO, has limited resources. When you announce your goals, a significant portion of these resources gets allocated to managing the social aspects of your commitment. You start thinking about how to explain your progress, how to manage expectations, how to maintain your image. This cognitive load directly competes with the mental resources needed for actual goal pursuit. There's also the accountability paradox to consider. While conventional wisdom suggests that public accountability increases follow-through, the research tells a more nuanced story. Public accountability works when the person holding you accountable focuses on your actions, not your intentions. But most social accountability, friends, family, social media, focuses on supporting your intentions, which paradoxically reduces your drive to act. The most effective goal achievers understand this distinction. They create what researchers call implementation intentions, specific if-then plans that operate below the level of conscious deliberation. Instead of, "I'm going to get fit," they create protocols. If it's 6 a.m. on weekdays, then I go to the gym. These implementation intentions bypass the social validation loop entirely. Your brain loves automation. When goals exist in the space of implementation intentions rather than social intentions, they become part of your automatic behavioral repertoire. You're not constantly deciding whether to work toward your goal, you're simply executing predetermined protocols. This shift from social intention to implementation intention fundamentally changes your relationship with the goal. Instead of deriving satisfaction from talking about what you're going to do, you begin to derive satisfaction from the process of doing it. Your reward systems recalibrate to value action over announcement. PART3THEBIOCHEMISTRYOFSILA and CEASUCEESIS. Now let's explore what happens when you keep your goals private. The neurobiology of silent goal pursuit operates on completely different principles than public goal announcement, and understanding these differences is crucial for anyone serious about achievement. When you keep a goal private, your brain maintains what neuroscientists call prediction uncertainty. This uncertainty state keeps your dopamine system actively engaged in seeking solutions and taking actions. Instead of getting the premature reward of social validation, your brain stays hungry for the actual reward of accomplishment. This creates what researchers term optimal arousal, a state where your nervous system maintains just enough activation to drive consistent action without becoming overwhelmed. The anterior cingulate cortex remains vigilant, continuously monitoring the gap between your current state and your desired outcome. This sustained attention is essential for long-term goal achievement. Silent goal pursuit also preserves what psychologists call intrinsic motivation, the internal drive that comes from personal satisfaction rather than external validation. When you announce goals, you shift toward extrinsic motivation, where your drive becomes dependent on social feedback. This shift is problematic because extrinsic motivation is less sustainable and more fragile than intrinsic motivation. The neurochemistry of intrinsic motivation involves a different set of circuits than those activated by social validation. The insular cortex, which processes internal bodily sensations and emotional states, shows increased activity during privately pursued goals. You become more attuned to the internal feedback from your actions rather than external feedback from others. This internal focus creates what researchers call flow potential, the increased likelihood of entering flow states during goal-related activities. Flow states, characterized by complete absorption in the task at hand, are associated with optimal performance and high levels of satisfaction. These states are difficult to achieve when part of your attention is allocated to managing social perceptions of your progress. Silent goal pursuit also preserves cognitive flexibility. When you announce goals, you become cognitively committed to a specific path, making it harder to adapt when circumstances change. Private goals maintain what psychologists call strategic flexibility, the ability to adjust your approach while maintaining your ultimate objective. The stress hormone cortisol plays a fascinating role here. Public goals create performance pressure, leading to elevated cortisol levels that can impair both creativity and execution. Private goals operate in a lower stress environment, allowing for what neuroscientists call relaxed focus, a state optimal for both learning and performance. There's also the factor of implementation protection. When goals are private, they exist in what we might call a protected cognitive space, free from external interference, judgment, or well-meaning advice that might derail your specific approach. Your brain can focus entirely on the problem-solving aspects of goal achievement rather than the social management aspects. The neurotransmitter GABA, your brain's primary inhibitory chemical, plays a crucial role in this process. Silent goal pursuit allows for optimal GABA function, which helps filter out irrelevant information and maintain focus on goal-relevant activities. Public goals create social noise that interferes with this filtering process. Research shows that people who pursue goals privately report higher levels of what psychologists call authentic engagement. They feel more genuinely connected to their pursuits and less like they're performing for others. This authenticity translates directly into sustained motivation and better outcomes. PART4 STRATEGIMPLEMENTA. Understanding the science is one thing, implementing it strategically is another. The goal isn't to become completely isolated in your pursuits, but to create optimal conditions for achievement while maintaining necessary support systems. The key is distinguishing between implementation support and social validation. Implementation support focuses on your actions and systems, a workout partner who shows up regardless of your goals, a writing group that focuses on the craft rather than your aspirations. Social validation focuses on your intentions and encourages you for having good goals rather than for taking effective actions. Strategic silence means creating what I call achievement zones, protected spaces where your goals exist purely in the realm of action rather than discussion. These zones operate on different principles than your social environments. In achievement zones, progress is measured by outcomes, not intentions. Satisfaction comes from capability development, not social recognition. This doesn't mean you can't have accountability, but the accountability must be structure-focused rather than goal-focused. Instead of telling someone I want to lose weight, you might say I'm implementing a specific morning routine, and I'd appreciate you checking whether I'm following through on the routine itself. The focus shifts from the goal to the system. The most successful goal achievers create what researchers call implementation environments, physical and social spaces optimized for action rather than discussion. These environments minimize social pressure while maximizing implementation support. Your gym buddy doesn't need to know you're training for a marathon. They just need to show up consistently for workouts. Digital environments require special attention. Social media platforms are designed to reward announcement and intention rather than achievement and action. They're essentially dopamine delivery systems that can hijack your goal pursuit process. Strategic silence often means creating boundaries around digital sharing until goals reach irreversible momentum. Timing becomes crucial. The research suggests there's an optimal point for goal disclosure after you've established consistent action patterns, but before the goal is completely achieved. This timing maximizes social support while minimizing social interference with your motivation systems. Your goals are not social currency. They're not meant to generate likes, comments, encouragement, or validation. They're meant to be achieved. And the neuroscience is unambiguous. Premature disclosure is neurological sabotage. The brain you inherited from thousands of years of evolution doesn't understand the difference between talking about hunting and actually hunting. It doesn't distinguish between announcing your intention to build shelter and actually building shelter. It processes social acknowledgement of your goals as evidence that you're already succeeding, reducing the very drive that makes success possible. This isn't about becoming antisocial or avoiding all forms of support. This is about understanding the precise mechanisms by which your nervous system processes goals and optimizing those mechanisms for achievement rather than announcement. The next time you feel the urge to share your latest goal, recognize that feeling for what it is: your brain's attempt to get a reward without doing the work. That urge to announce is actually valuable information. It's telling you that your motivation system is active and ready to be directed toward action rather than discussion. Your future self won't remember what you said you were going to do. Your future self will be living the results of what you actually did. And the most powerful thing you can do for your goals is to let your results do the talking. The science is clear, the mechanisms are understood, and the choice is yours. Keep your goals in the sacred space where action lives, not where conversation thrives. Your success depends not on who knows about your journey, but on whether you take the journey at all.